hosted by the Chennai chapter of ICF. I'm Meetu, Director, Marketing and Communication in our chapter, playing the role of the host for today's session. Needless to say, it must be a surprise for many to not see Aruna. She's traveling and sure she's missing being here with all of us and Marcia today. It's truly my pleasure and honor to welcome Marcia, a name so well known and respected in the coaching fraternity. Today's topic is blending the neuroscience of collective wisdom with the practical application of coaching skills. This session carries CCUs. We will be sharing a Google feedback form towards the end of the session, and we request you to fill it in with your name and correct email IDs so that we can share the CCUs applied. And I must say, I can already sense such an energy galore in the room today. I would now like to formally invite our president, Kannan, to welcome Marcia.
Thank you, Meetu. And good evening, good morning, whatever time zone you are joining from. I welcome you all to this another exciting evening in March as a learning. And a special welcome to Marcia. Good morning to you. And thank you for being generous to offer your wisdom to this group of coaches. And on behalf of the chapter, I welcome each and every one of you who have chosen to join the session today. And just for your information, Chennai chapter of ICF, chapter of ICF is regularly conducting the monthly learning events like the one that you are witnessing today. And if you are interested in joining any of our sessions, feel free to sign up for our mailing list or become part of the chapter. In addition to learning, the chapter works tirelessly in the areas of growing coaches, growing community, and growing coaching itself. So all our events are surrounding these three pillars, and through that we grow the coach chapter as well. And we have some exciting platforms that are available to our chapter members, which are an opportunity to showcase your writing skills for the monthly blog that we publish, an opportunity for you to share your wisdom with fellow coaches in the community as a book review that's available. And we also have a coachability as a platform where when in your practice, if you have come across or if you have developed some tool that works wonderfully for you, have the opportunity to share it with the fellow coaches as well. So do feel free to get in touch with us for any of the details or joining the chapter. We would be very glad to welcome you. And Marcia, thanks again for being here today. And I'm very curious, right? I know one of your fundamental teaching is about, conversations are about curiosity and not about authority. So we are all very curious to learn from you this evening. And Marcia has been, needs no introduction. She's a famous author for various best-selling books, and most of which we would have read as coaches. So one popular book is The Coach the Person and Not the Problem, which has been a Bible for many of the developing coaches that I have come across. And Breakthrough Coaching is another one, which was one of my personal favorites. And Masha has also been the global gurus, thinkers, 30 kind of listing on which he is number 5. So we are here to learn from a guru today. Over to you, Masha.
Okay. Well, thank you. Before I get to the slides, one of the things about, my publisher keeps saying, okay, write another book because coaches love your books. But I then have to say, but what else do I have to say? And sometimes it comes right to me, of course, I need to share this. And sometimes I have to really then dig into the research. And even if I think, this is important, I still want to substantiate what I say because that's important to me as a researcher of learning, which I have been now for, I don't know, 45 years. And, how do we really learn and grow? And so, when they asked me to write the second edition of Coach the Person, the first thing that came up was, what is it that coaches are always asking me about and seem to be scared? And the whole issue of AI, will I be replaced? And, and so really digging into what is it that we do that's so important as humans that cannot be replicated? Because certainly there are some things, basic problem solving, and what you learn in and the basic skills of coaching probably will be. But that's why, we commit to really digging into our presence and that connection that we make that's so important. So that's what I want to share today is what is it that we do that's really human focused, that not only is it going to sustain us as coaches and our profession, but truly makes the difference that we connect with our clients in such a special way that it's like the combined energies is what creates the insights, and that's why I call it collective wisdom. And I studied for years with a colleague of mine who wrote books on collective wisdom, and his latest book is Space is Not Empty. The energy between us is visceral. It's, there's a lot that goes on, just even in between us energetically, that again cannot be replicated by something not real. So that's where what I want to really focus on today. So I'm going to bring up my slides. Okay. So again, this is the focus of what makes it so effective and also difficult for AI to replicate. And regardless of AI, what's important, even if that didn't come into our reality, really looking at what makes coaching so special? How can we really listen for what we need to share that makes the difference for our clients? So I'm looking both at how to make that connection, but then how to integrate it into the coaching, into our conversation. And please, if there's anything I say that's not clear, because I know I get deep into the research and and there's differences in our language, please raise your hand. And I know that it'll be monitored. So I'm happy to answer the questions. I'd rather you understand than just, keep going on and thinking, okay, this is important. I'll look for it later. So I'm fine with interruptions. So the great value that even people new to coaching. So I want you, never to think that, yes, but I'm new, so I can't really do this. Because even if you just hold that safe space for people, that it may be the only time in their day that they feel safe enough to talk, that is even powerful. I look back at my testimonials in my first couple of years of coaching, and looking back now, it's like I don't know what was I doing. That was even before we had competencies. But the testimonials all said, "Oh, I'm so grateful for that moment of my day to explore, to stop and talk about what's going on instead of being stuck in it or fighting the fires." So remember, this is important even beyond the competencies, the skill list that you have. People need to feel seen. This is a human need to be seen, to be heard, to feel valued. And that's what makes me feel like I belong here. And we do this more with our presence than even that we do with the words. If the presence don't back up the words, they will not believe you. And so we fully receive without judgment what they offer. We stay present, even if we're not sure what to say, so to make sure that they constantly feel safe with us. If you're not sure what to say, just, summarize what you just heard and offer it back. You know, how does this relate to what you want to create? We make coaching too hard sometimes. And you get better with time with your skills. So remember, even when I do the demo, please remember, I have now been doing this for 30 years. And I still, when I watch my demos, go, oh, I could do that better. So we're always on a path of mastery. We just keep getting better. Like in martial arts, there's no end. We just keep earning our belts and getting better on the path. But I want to share with you, that I actually learned the importance of being accepted for who I am and not being judged and what that did for me very early on in my life, and I'm so grateful for having that experience. I didn't know how to actually define it, but it helped me to get through some very difficult times when I was a young adult. This gift that this teacher gave me. So I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, that was populated primarily from people in the Midwest United States that how they were raised was actually very culturally different than me. My family, my cultural background was everybody talks at once, and we're constantly challenging each other. Why do you think that way? And you know, um, I'm not sure I believe that, and sharing ideas, and it was okay to do that, and that was actually encouraged to explore. How we think and why. So, I had a foundation for coaching even very young, but it wasn't appreciated by my teachers. So they saw me as just this precocious girl, and she's like, always showing off. And frankly, I was just I wanted to know what my classmates thought. So yes, I talked too much. And they
Uh,
often put me in the corners of the
that guy is
classrooms.
not at all looking like a
So I spent many years
person whom nobody
sitting in the corner and wondering what was wrong with me. But it seemed like, but
all
then
those
I'd go
people are
home
coming
and it
but
was appreciated
slightly
when I was home. And so, it just continued every year. Most of my roommate classmates were taught, children should be seen and not heard. In my household, it was like, oh, it's okay. So, when my mother passed away, I found all my report cards in a drawer, and I was reading through them, and for years there was on the back of the report card they always had a comment overall of my character. And there were so many comments about how something was wrong with me. I needed to improve control in relation to my talking, which I now get paid for, but then was not appreciated. But something happened in the sixth grade. I had a teacher who, instead of putting me in the corner, she sat me next to her. And when everyone else was working on their assignments, she she talked to me. She let me ask questions. She laughed with me. She made me feel I'm okay. I may be different, but I'm okay. And what she wrote on my report card was, "Doesn't she love everyone?" And even today, when I see that, I can remember that she saw me. She saw me, not in relation to everyone else, and saw a value of what I brought. And I believe that's the great gift, that we give to our clients, that when we're present, we see them without judgment. They aren't broken. They don't need us to fix them. They just need us to help them think a little differently because we're stuck. So we see them as smart. We see them as not, as creative, as resourceful, as whole individuals. And as we talk to them, they feel that, that we're not judging them, that we're there, that, we believe in them. We're not going to fix them in any way. And even if they cry, we don't jump in to fix them. We just allow them to process whatever they now see and then respectfully ask, would you share what just came up for you? That's the great gift that you can give them wherever you are on your skill path. And to know this, I love the work of Parker Palmer. I've read a number of his books, especially the book On the Brink of Everything. But he said, the soul doesn't want to be advised or fixed or saved. It simply wants to be witnessed, to be seen, heard, companion, exactly as it is. So even when people say, I don't know, what do you think? It's only because they've been conditioned not to speak up, not to know. And that if we can still encourage them, though, but I really want to know what you've been thinking, even if you think your ideas are wrong, can we start with that? Because whatever it is I tell you, it's only from my experience, not yours. And so your presence, your appreciative presence feeds this yearning to be seen, to be understood for and valued for who they are and
ఇంట్లో
who
వల్ల
they
ప్రశ్న
can become. So when they feel seen, understood, and important enough, what really happens?
Dr. Marcia is muted, so
Yeah,
instead of
I
mute all, you
got
can
it.
just yeah, yeah. And I
Yeah,
request everyone to please keep their microphones on silent.
yeah, thank you. So when they feel seen and heard and understood, what happens is it's actually biochemical reaction in them. So this is not only do we do this with our presence, but we're actually impacting their emotional state. And what will happen is because we're the coach, even though I feel like I'm your equal partner, I'm not here to fix you, advise you, their brain still sees me as the dominant person in the conversation. So what happens is that their emotions then will regulate with mine. So if I bring the emotions of I care about you, I believe in you, I'm here for you, that they start to feel comfortable with us. Whatever tension they had will release. They start to feel like, okay, you're okay. I want to be with you. So there's a bonding. And it opens up their brain to be willing to explore with you, which is what we really want. So even if they come a little hesitant or unsure about this coaching, our emotional state will relieve that and open it up. So what happens is that our emotions then trigger their hormones and neurotransmitters, the neurochemicals, not and quiets the physical chemicals of adrenaline, and they trigger that. Oh, you're okay. I want to be with you. And the better I've gotten at coaching, and those who've seen me, been in some of my classes, or hopefully today, you'll see that it's more of a conversation. How many people come back and say, "Were you coaching me?" Or the one guy I did a demo and he said, it felt like we were just having this conversation and boom, I had a breakthrough. And I'm like, thank you that it was a flow. It doesn't mean that I don't know if I'm, I know I'm doing my competencies. I know that I want to understand what they really want and get an agreement on that. I know I want to explore what's getting in the way, what's stopping them from achieving that. And then hopefully it'll lead to awareness that I'll capture and then actions they will take. I know that, but I don't have to think about it. I'm there with them, and so the better you can trust yourself in them, wherever you are in your path of coaching, in that moment you're with your clients, just trust yourself that your presence is enough that will get them somewhere and help them to move beyond where they're stuck today. And this is our human advantage. This is what we do that AI cannot replicate. And I doubt, people have said today, I doubt it, and that this will be fully replicated because they can't put out emotional energy. They can fake it, but they can't put it out, and so it's the energetic exchange that makes the difference. So I want you to recall a time in your own life when you felt fully seen by someone. It could have been, in your family, it could have been a teacher, it could have been in sports, it could have been a friend, who just really saw you. And even if they said something difficult, do you know that this is what you're doing? And you were uncomfortable with it, but you still felt fully seen. And I would love to write just a few words in the chat, no more than 5, no sentences, just a word or two What was it you felt? What did you experience? What did that gift give you? So I'll see if I can. Okay, love, felt accepted, supported. I felt heard. Yes, cared, loved, seen, cherished, cherished. I love that. Safe, safe. I felt connected, understood, loved. Thank you. I want you all to remember what you wrote. Surprised that they valued my presence. Yeah, important. Right. I belonged. Yeah, a blending that I was blending with them. And it just felt like, I don't even know that I'm being coached, accepted, fulfilled, or they weren't coaching you, but that I was just with them, fulfilled. Yeah. Thank you for that. This is what we do for our clients. That's so important. And we can all do this. This transcends cultures. When they feel your energy of compassion, acceptance, appreciation, even without speaking, it opens them to explore, which leads to the creative insights, that we call breakthroughs, which create learning and growth. This is an important part. And I know, because I've worked with, many of you, but, with coaches around the world, from the beginning, level 1. And I teach a lot of level 2 and level 3 now. That, at the beginning, there is a focus. We think we have to, we want to get a certification. And so we focus. But remembering that when we focus on performance, it's just for certification. It's not that you have to try to be perfect in your conversations. Your attempt to be perfect takes away from your presence. So when you're with clients, know you know enough and you'll do well enough and you'll get better. Because this is the significance and paying attention with our cognitive brain, I'm just listening to your words, is not the same as fully receiving them with your body. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. So it is a full body receiving. It's a full body presence. It's not just mental. And I know many of you, like me, were brought up, you have to get straight A's in school and you have to be the best. And we're very cognitive in how we work, walk through this world, and so this is something you have to work on to be able to trust beyond your brain, to shut your brain down, that you'll be enough. And again, I was brought up the same way, so how many times I have worked in, India, China, many places, as well as in the US but you don't understand. They say, Marcia, you don't understand the way I was brought up. And I'm like, no, I do understand. And I always in China, I tell them, I said, Chinese mothers and Jewish mothers are the same, that you have to do your best. You have to do your best. And I know many of you are brought up with that because even teaching leadership. I remember teaching emotional intelligence for American Express to a team in India. And all they wanted to know was, how did I do in relation to everyone else? And I'm like, that's not the point. We're taking a look at your score. And it was so difficult to get them off of that competitive mindset. So this is a shift. I know it's a shift, that it tends to go against many of the Asian cultures not think to not think. But this is our mastery, to trust and be fully present and know that we'll do well enough. So it should feel like a conversation that you engage with them. Um, I want to skip that chat thing because I want to get to the demo. But this really is a full body presence. And there is a new page with resources and videos for every chapter from my book. So even if you can't, get the book, that's fine. I'm not trying to make you go get it. In fact, if you go to this page, you're going to get all kinds of resources and a chapter, and I'll be posting more and more on this page. So it'll help you in developing your coaching skills. But I learned early on that we put out energy with the three major centers attached to to the vagus nerve. They're constantly talking to each other, your gut, your heart, and your brain. So we are not just brains, or we call it neck up. So we're not just neck up. So we have to pay attention to our body and to open our brain with curiosity, but also open our heart with gratitude, compassion, and to open that center point that I know a lot of you, whether it's a martial art or yoga or Pilates, that you know where your core is, to feel courage, the will to move forward, to feel that in your gut. These are the emotions we give to our clients. Sometimes I really want to give my courage to my client. But so if I'm fully open with curiosity, compassion, and courage, I'm actually giving this emotional state to my clients. And it's amazing what happens that creates, we co-create in that energetic connection. And that's what collective wisdom is. It's a co-creation. It's not what I tell them, it's what I give them with my emotional state that allows them to freely explore with me. It creates these insights. It reconnects what they knew from the past to creatively see the present in a different way. So remember that when you quit thinking in your coaching, you're not disappearing, but you're releasing your worries, your competency checklist. How many coaches I've worked with that the first half, when I listen to their recordings, the first half, it's like, oh, it's formulaic questions. What do you want to get out of our time together? What's your measure of success? Why is this important? And a lot of times it's out of context because they're just thinking about the questions. And then once they get the questions out of the way, they coach brilliantly. I'm like, can you flip that? And just be with them up front and see what comes up. See what comes up. Your presence is so important in taking them to that place. And again, I know that, I at first have to know what they're seeing as their problem. Just start with that. I need to know, I need to see what you see. And don't ever make the assumption as soon as they say, oh, I'm having a problem with my team or my boss, that you don't know. You have not lived their life. You do not see through the lens of their experiences. So just start with being curious. What do you mean by that? So how often does this show up? Just be curious in their experience and offer it back for confirmation, to make sure you see what they see. And then what's making this a challenge for you, and understand how they see the challenge. Then it becomes easier to say, so what would you like to change or create in our time together? So spend time with them up front, and whenever you drop out of, you worried, am I doing the right thing? Was that question okay? Just come back to that presence. I am here for you. I am here for you. And so that's what they need to feel throughout your conversation. So again, so wherever you are in your path of mastery, just know that, yes, you must learn your competencies because you were brought up knowing that knowing is important. Okay, and now I'm saying, no, I want you to not know, and to come from a place of not knowing, some beginner's mind. Um, but I know you have to learn the competencies because that's what helps you shift from knowing to be, to be a thinking partner instead of an advisor or a mentor. So you kind of cling to your competencies at first. That's okay. I want you to know them up front. But then the second transformation you will make is letting them go. Letting them go. Know that you know enough. I've worked on my competencies. I know enough that when I'm present with you, I trust I know enough. And that's where we move forward on our path of mastery. And so you need to emotionally connect with them and know that they're going to show emotions throughout the conversation if they really are having new insights, because often an insight will trigger an emotional reaction in them. Again, they might cry, they might feel embarrassed, they may laugh at themselves, which I get a lot of my clients because I've already established a good connection with them. And all of a sudden they'll say something, like the demo I like to show in my training, well, why would these people want to talk to me? It's just a little me. And then they hear themselves, and they start laughing because they know that they're getting in the way of themselves, So it can be a whole range of emotional reactions. All emotions are fine, and just let them process through it. But know that you are. In fact, the first coaching book I ever wrote was called The Discomfort Zone. And I remember somebody saying, I thought you were going to make me get rid of my discomfort. And I said, no, make people uncomfortable because that's when learning occurs. When they're open to learning, it's often uncomfortable. They go through a fog of uncertainty before they have the breakthrough. So it's okay. It's okay to make your clients a little uncomfortable, uncertain. So the brain is constantly, it doesn't want to be uncomfortable. And this is why we need coaches. Because the moment I try to figure out on my own why I do something, I will instantly rationalize my behavior. Well, I shouldn't have gotten mad, but I got mad because, and we have an instant rationalization. And the thing is, the smarter you are, the quicker you will rationalize and hold on to your rationalizations, And so when you're coaching, smart, really smart people, they're always giving you reasons. Often I'll just say, is that a reason or a rationalization? you know, and that's how I've helped myself make, when I make a decision, I'll ask myself, was that a good reason, or are you just rationalizing why you don't want to call this person right now? And sometimes I will rationalize it and say, yeah, but I'm going to not call them right now anyway. I'll call, but I promise myself when I will call them. So the brain needs someone outside of itself. We're thought pattern disruptors, is what we are. We have these patterns of, seeing something, even knowing it's not right, but then rationalizing it. I'll fix it later. I'll change later. How many leaders say, I want to learn coaching skills, but right now because of what's going on in the world. When right now is when you need to, because people are scared and they're not certain about what's going on in the world. You need to use coaching skills. And and it's just an excuse. It's like, okay, so you want to be the one that fixes everybody and have them come in your office all the time, or do you want to help them think for themselves so you have some time for yourself? So understand how important coaching is. Because we all, by humans, hold on to past perceptions. It makes us feel safe. Brain's number one purpose is to keep you safe. Number one, keep you safe. That's why fight or flight is the first reaction. And so we're going to make stuff up to not change if left to our own devices. And especially what truly gets in the way is my definition of self. There's a book called A Possible Self where she says, who I think I am today is often the greatest enemy of who I want to become. But letting go of who I think I am today, it's almost like I have to let that self die, that I think I'm the one that has to fix everyone. In order to be the coach, I have to, in those moments, really let it go away. And that's very scary for people to let go. And so also holding the space of safety for them as they start to realize what's getting in their way is a critical piece. So we must maintain this presence, not just at the beginning, but throughout. Here's the quote. Who we believe we are is the enemy of who we want to become. I absolutely love that quote. And I got to meet her at the ICF conference last October, and I just told her, I said, I'm always using your quote, um, because I think it's so powerful. But breakthroughs are rips in perspective. They aren't just these, oh, wow, yay, thank you, but sometimes it does trigger a difficult reaction. Or it's like, duh, I should know that. How stupid am I? And it's like, well, you didn't know it, but now you do. So You must have an unwavering trust in being a coach, being present for them in order for this to occur, for them to think new on their own. And this is not easy. I know that. When the people say, I don't know, what would you do? Tell me what to do. To come back and say, you know what, I bet you've been thinking about this though. Or, have you ever seen anyone else deal with this situation, like a leader a friend, what did they do? What have you thought about and thought that won't work? Would you share that with me? Get them to open their mind and share with you instead of just jumping. So listen for the core planks of their story. Start with just, I need to see what you see. This is how you're seeing the reality of this situation. And often they will throw their identity, but I'm the newest leader in the room, so I don't want to say anything. Newest leader. That's how they're defining themselves, or I'm just not experienced enough to do that, or this one client I was working with, but I'm the expert, so they need to know what I think, and he was trying to lead a team of his peers to come up with some creative solutions for moving water around the state of Arizona, which is the desert. And I said, okay, but you're supposed to be there to help come up with new ideas. And you keep jumping to be the expert, and we had done a live 360 and they're all saying, he just shuts us down. I said, so instead of being the expert, if you were truly the leader of this group to come up with the new ideas, who could you be? And it was a difficult transition for him to make because he really was an expert, but to see how he could be more of a collaborator, more of an inspirer instead of being the coach. So I want them not only who they're defining themselves today, but when you flip it to what do you want to change or create that's not happening now, that's when you ask, so who are you in that picture? So you want to start by I use a lot of reflection and I use it more and more and more and more. And I know some schools don't really even teach this, which I'm really sad, but it's reflective inquiry. And so many times when I just summarize what they said, I don't even have to ask the question. They're like, oh, well, I don't know, maybe it's different. Or they'll start to change their story just with a concisely summarized reflection. And I will often use closed questions, So here's what I hear you saying. Is that right? Because I'm confirming what they see. So up front, confirmation of what I hear you saying, it's okay to use a closed question. And once we get to what they want and looking at what's getting in the way, then I explore and use more open questions. So a lot of you're going to hear me say in the demo. So this is what you're saying. Is that right? Or noticing an emotional shift. You got quiet and looked away. Would you share with me what came up for you in that moment? Um, that's the power of being a thinking partner. And to remember any emotional reaction is okay. Let them process. Let them think through it. Don't interrupt. If they get really frustrated, that's okay. Let them calm down a little and say, okay, so what's going on right now? Would you share that with me? And the crying is fine, it's fine, it's fine. It's just an emotional human reaction. They're humans. Don't judge it. Don't jump in to fix it for them. Please, it makes them weak. And don't cry with them because then they worry they hurt you. So you're not there to help them feel better. You coach them to see better. Um, so remember, first I want to see what they see as the situation. Then I want to understand why this is a challenge. And then I shift to, so what are you hoping to achieve, to change or create? What does that look like? What will be different for you? And even if they're, reluctant, I don't know what to talk about, would you be willing to explore anything differently to achieve the goals you have? Then ask them, who are you in this picture? And use their language. I know we have this, but sometimes they're not going to know. Just say, how are you showing up in the picture you want to create? How are you showing up? Which is actually a better question for people who aren't coaches, and the collective wisdom then comes from our full open presence. So the two questions you should always be asking, what does this person really want that's not happening now? So I first understand their situation, what's making it a challenge, and then what is it they really want? And this could evolve throughout the session. It's not one and done. Okay, so is this what you want to work on in our time together? As you start to unwrap what's getting in the way, there will be new things that show up. So you need to stop and say, when you said that, do you want to focus on that challenge instead of what you first said? You invite them to choose. So we always wonder what's really getting in the way of the smart, capable person from seeing a way forward to what they desire to change or create. So, presence and skills equal flow. Stay present with compassion and courage. Appreciate what they offer. Breathe and release any tension in your body so you have full body present. And take time. Take time. Coach slow up front, please. Too many coaches, they get too quickly. They want to move to what do you want to change? What do you want differently and what are you going to do? Coach slow up front. Get that combined understanding because that's also how you create trust and safety and demonstrate I am here for you. So mastery really is the deepening of presence. It's not the perfection of your skills. They don't really need you to be perfect. Don't worry about being a perfect coach. I don't know any. I know I'm not. We're always moving on the path of mastery. So with that, I'm going to do a demo. So I want you to watch, how I use my presence and reflective statements, and then we'll have time for Q&A to ask about what I presented or what happened in the coaching, before we come back to this. So,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
Oh,
Marcia,
good.
hi.
Yeah. Mm,
Can I call upon the participant
yeah.
who? Yeah.
And
Okay.
and as you do, if everyone else, would you please turn off your camera and as well as yeah, you've got your mics off, but turn off your camera so it's not distracting up there. Um, and then you'll only see me and Madhu. Yeah. And if you would spotlight Madhu as well, great. Wonderful.
Just
Madhu, do
just a
I?
quick note, just a quick note
Yeah.
before we start the demonstration to Madhu
Mhm.
that Madhu, you would already know that we record the session and it's later on put on the social media platform. So I hope you're okay with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
fine with that, Neetu.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Good.
Great. Have I met you, Madhu? You look familiar.
No,
No?
Marcia. No.
Okay. Well, it's good to meet you. And
Same
thank you for
here. Happy to
yeah,
be here in this conversation, Marcia.
great. Thank you for uh, raising your hand to support your peers. Really appreciate it. So,
I really look forward to the session to learn myself. So thanks for this
okay.
opportunity.
So I know that that when they asked for this, they were looking at your challenge. So tell me a little bit about what's on your mind. What would you like to work through with me?
Yes, Marcia, I think one point that I want to discuss with you is, I come from a background of, you know, I come from the information technology sector, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been a hands-on person in the industry rather
Mm-hmm.
than from the learning and development team. And I switched to coaching
Mm-hmm.
once I started, you know, getting
Mm-hmm.
trained to become a coach. Then
Mm-hmm.
I really understood and loved how coaching affects people. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been a couple of years since, I've kind of got into the actual
Mm-hmm.
business side of coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I've been practicing my coaching and regularly I've done around 250 odd sessions so far. But what is coming to my mind is how do I, how do I blend the two is how I'd like to, discuss that in this session, Marcia.
Okay. So when you say blend the two, I hear, you say you came from a technology background and now you're moving into coaching. But blend, what does blend mean to you?
Yes, blend, I want to mention, I had been a manager earlier, so I used to
Mm-hmm.
mentor a lot of people. So
Okay.
there's this gray line, I kind of
Uh-huh.
try to, I kind of hit upon,
Uh-huh.
where do I stop mentoring? Where do I
Uh-huh.
begin coaching? That kind of, the
Okay.
fuzzy area.
Okay. So it sounds what you're saying is that when I am having conversations with them, I am doing both mentoring and coaching. Okay. And okay, great. And that what you're saying is the difficulty is knowing when to stop mentoring. Is that
I,
it?
I, I, I do it separate sessions, mentoring sessions separately,
Okay.
coaching separately, but the
Okay.
mentor, it's the same brain,
Yeah.
right? So how do I switch that on and this one off? So
Okay.
that's kind of, one that I
All
want
right.
to kind of talk
But
through.
okay, but just want to clarify. So you do separate sessions where you're just coaching.
Yes.
So is it that sometimes you do combine them, mentoring and coaching, or is it okay, so you want to know when you go into coaching, I'm a coach, I'm not a mentor. Is that okay? All right. So so we're just focusing on a coaching situation. So tell me a little bit more about what makes this such a challenge for you to wear a coaching hat, to be in coaching with people. And is this at work you're talking about? I just want to,
I have my
or
own firm. I started my
oh,
own firm of coaching. Yeah.
okay. So you want to be able to be fully in as a coach with people. What's making this difficult for you, Madhu?
Yeah, Marcia, the point is, yes, I do not want to give the answer when
Mm-hmm.
I'm coaching. So that's where,
Mm-hmm.
I consciously stop. But
Mm-hmm.
what happens is there comes to a point that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, yes, I know that, yes, that's the point. So
I
how
know.
exactly?
That's it,
Yes,
isn't it? That
correct,
moment of, oh, I know what this person should do. It's the I know that's kicking you out.
correct. And
Yeah.
also another
Uh-huh.
point is I'm conscious that yes, I should take a separate session for mentoring. And
Mm-hmm.
am I being unfair to the person saying that, okay, it's for my own benefit, I'm asking them to book another mentoring session. So that's where,
Well,
that
huh.
dilemma comes in, if I know what I
Um,
mean.
yeah, so in that moment when you feel I know, but I'm not going to tell them, but then but I'm going to advise them to get to take a mentoring session. That, do you do that at that moment, right when you know, or do you wait to the end?
Now that's best practice that I want to hear from you,
Oh, you
Marsha.
want to wait.
Mm.
Okay. All right. So what you want, what I hear you saying is what you want is in that moment that your brain goes, I know that I don't say, oh, they need mentoring, right? Okay, so say that back to me.
How do I best approach that moment
Mm-hmm.
when I
Mm-hmm.
think that, yes, this person needs mentoring, I can help them.
Mm-hmm. And then do
And
what? Mm-hmm.
and then what happens is my coaching brain is now, impacted that,
Yeah.
yes, this person
Yeah.
needs a mentor.
Yeah.
And then that thought process that I had
Yeah.
as a coach gets
Uh-huh.
impacted.
Yeah, okay. So you started, you have that thought, this person I know, they could use mentoring. And you said, and so what happens then? It's difficult to coach. But what is it you would want at that moment that you say to yourself, oh, I know. And know that we do that naturally because you know a lot. So it's not to make that go away. You said, in that moment that my brain says, I know, what would you like to do differently?
What I would like to do is to continue the thread of coaching
Okay.
till we reach a logical
Okay.
conclusion of the coaching session.
Uh-huh.
And then at some point of time, tell them that, yes, this is what you should be doing, but since I
Uh-huh.
have experience in this field and
Okay.
I think I can mentor you,
All right.
let's
You're
have
going to
another
offer
session.
them, you're going to offer
Yes.
them mentoring. That is another thing, that you're still assuming that you need to offer them mentoring without
Mm,
even knowing that they may discover it on their own. So, I just want you to hold on to that because I want to come back to the moment but that thought that I'll just hold on to it because I can offer them mentoring later.
mm,
It's still there. So coming back to that moment, you said, when my brain says I know what they should do, I want to stay as the coach. Okay. But what needs to change in that moment, Madhu? Not just, oh, I'll tell them later. For you to truly hold on to coaching, what is it that you want to feel or do differently than just hold on, not saying,
yeah, I
I give it
want
to you?
to, continue listening to them and then arrive at the point where
Hmm.
they get that aha moment themselves.
Okay. All right. I'm going to ask you again, though, in that moment, what's going to allow you to stay in coaching till they get the aha moment? What is it shift you need to make in order to stay in coaching?
Ignore that thought that I know what they want.
Okay. Okay, ignore it. So let's start with that. Is that's what you want to work on is how can I ignore that thought?
Yes.
Okay. So but again, so in that moment what I hear you saying is when my brain says I know what it is you should do, that you set aside the thought so you can stay in the coaching process. You stay as a coach. So is that what you want to work on with me?
Yes, Marcia.
Okay. So can you just say that back to me in one sentence?
So when I realize that,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I can help the coachee in more than
Mm-hmm.
one way than
Yeah.
just being a coach, I
Mm-hmm.
want to focus on finishing the coaching process till
Uh-huh.
the end, and then maybe, have a discussion about the mentoring process.
Okay. And I like the word maybe. Maybe I'll have. But that's different, Madhu, than when you first said it. You said, then at the
Mhm.
end I can tell them. Now you're saying maybe,
Mm.
if they still need it. So I really thank you for that shift that you just made. Okay. So now that you know what it is that you really want, in that moment that your brain says that, you want to let that go and stay as a coach. So, what is it that you really think is the biggest thing that's getting in the way of you doing that?
I think what comes to my mind is, when I get into this session, maybe I should just do a reset of my mind and
Mm-hmm.
start as a clean slate, clean, sheet of paper,
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
or a sponge, just to absorb
Mm-hmm.
what is being said,
Mm-hmm.
and then, do not get diverted or distracted by whatever is being spoken. Just listen to what is being spoken. Don't try to,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
what do I say? Don't try
Yeah.
to
Be the one who knows.
digest that. Yeah.
Okay. To be the coach instead of being the one who knows.
Um,
Okay. So I hear you saying what you might do, but I want to go back to that moment. So how will you sustain it in that moment that your brain, does that? Because just setting yourself up front may or may not be enough. So if your brain then goes, oh yeah, I know what to do. Um, what stops you? Not what you will do, Madhu, because if you just go to what you're going to do, we're not getting to the source of why you do it. It's like your technology. In technology, we look at problems, we do a root cause analysis, right? If you solve the surface problem, it keeps showing up, correct? Okay, so know that I worked for tech companies for 11 years, so I know about root cause analysis. So what I'm asking you in that moment is not what you will do to fix the problem, but what happens in that moment, okay, that it keeps coming up. What is it that you need to overcome or address in that moment? Not what to do, but what do you think in you that you want to overcome?
I think I should stop, trying
Mhm.
to get into that solutioning mode where I try
Okay.
to walk a couple
Hmm.
of steps forward.
Okay. So in that solutioning mode, uh, who are you?
I am no longer the coach. I've moved
You're
away
no
from
longer the
being the
coach.
coach.
Okay, but who are you? How are you defining yourself in that moment?
So I'm more like a solution provider. It's no
Okay.
longer, yeah,
So what you're wanting to do is to shift from solution provider
to be
to
the coach.
to be the coach. Okay. So that's your great desire. All right. So but in that moment, because you're so good at providing solutions and you've been doing it for a very, very long time, what is that in order to be the coach, what might you not remind yourself to do, but something that's important enough to you to know why this is important to do?
Yeah, I think I have to remind myself that
Mhm.
yes, you know, this is a coaching session, and
Mhm.
I've been, you know, invited to this discussion as a
Mhm.
coach, and I have
Mhm.
to be just a coach and not try
Okay.
to, wear
Okay.
another hat.
Okay. So you remind yourself, stop it, be a coach.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's going to help you remember that?
I think the initial probably, focus, maybe, some meditation at the beginning before the session
Okay.
starts.
So it seems like this is really important to you, how you set yourself up. Okay. Because you've come back to that a couple times. So,
Mm,
so you, you are, I feel that works for you. Um, do you have a practice of meditation?
yes.
Okay. So, all right. So it sounds as if for now, what's going to help you the most is how I set myself up, my being, my mental state before you even go in. So is that what you feel is the most significant shift you can make right now?
Yes, Marcia.
Okay. So did you know that before we had this conversation?
I do tend to, you know, try to stay focused and have that
Mm-hmm.
couple of, minutes
Mm-hmm.
before the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I think I need to make it a practice to have, make it happen
Okay.
every time.
So it sounds to me, Madhu, that actually what you're wanting to work on right now is not that moment, but it's really important for you right now to look at how can I really sustain and step into my practice of meditation and knowing who I am before. So is that really what it is that you want to work on with me? How do I do that?
I think that exactly what I wanted to.
Okay. So it's the before, not during. All right. So you say you sometimes do this. What gets in the way, Madhu, of you taking that moment to set yourself before coaching?
It's just a matter of practice, Marsha. Sometimes I do it. I need to, set it up that every time before the session, I need to
Mm-hmm.
have these two, three
Mm-hmm.
steps. It's like a checklist I need to have, saying
Mm-hmm.
that, yes, I need to
A
follow
checklist.
this.
Okay.
Yes.
So is that what stopped you? You didn't have a checklist? Because you said you knew this, you need to do it, and you're not consistent. So is
Mm,
the checklist going to help you to do it every time?
yes.
Okay. So did you not know that before, that I need to do a checklist? Is this a new learning for you?
It's a new learning, yes. I
Mm-hmm.
used to do it, but it was not,
Yeah.
I did not make it a habit of doing it every
Mm.
time. I used to do sometime and
Hmm.
forget it the other times.
And then you forget or
Mm,
you get busy. So
yes.
again, the times you don't do it, what happens, Madhu?
What happens is, sometimes I rush into a session. I do
Okay.
not have time to,
Uh-huh.
do that,
Uh-huh.
focus,
Right.
meditation for myself. I
Yeah.
need to jump into the call immediately. And what I realize now that I have to
Hmm.
have that, you know, before the session, I need to have
Hmm.
you know, sort of a reminder before the
Hmm.
session itself in my calendar
Hmm.
where I say that, yes, this is my
Yeah.
focus part that I will
Okay.
add to my calendar so that before my
Oh,
session starts, this is what I will do before each and
okay.
every session.
And how much time do you need to
I
put
think
in your
it's just
calendar? A couple,
a 3 to 5 minutes focus
three to
session should
five
be good enough.
minutes. Okay. So, you said this is what you just learned.
Yes.
So tell me that. What was the biggest learning for you in this conversation?
I think it is that, why that, you know,
Mm.
thought comes in between the session,
Mm-hmm.
kind of just like you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, the root cause analysis came
Mm-hmm.
down to, having that focus at the beginning and
Yeah.
ensuring that I set my mind up for
Yeah.
success.
You set yourself up for success that you remember. So
Yeah.
so you said what will help you remember is putting the time in your calendar,
Mm.
right? So is that what you're committing to do? When are you going to start doing that, Madhu?
The very next session, Marcia,
And what is your next session?
it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow? So when are you going to put it in your calendar?
So I already have my sessions in my calendar. So
Yeah.
now I'll
Mm-hmm.
revisit all my sessions and then
Mm-hmm.
add this bit about, having
Okay.
focusing,
Mm-hmm.
on my meditation before the
Yeah.
sessions.
Yeah. Okay. So is that a good start for you for now?
Definitely.
Yeah. Great. Okay, and oftentimes, and I just want to acknowledge that that is the big, one of the greatest enemies is we get busy and all of our lives are so busy, that you found a way to that it's not going to stop the busyness, but how you can manage who you are and what you want to feel, even for 3 to 5 minutes before your coaching, that you found that way. So, yeah, and that it's important enough for you because obviously you have found that coaching is important. Yeah,
Definitely.
good. All right. And there's so much more we could talk about, I'm sure. But so are we good for now so we can come back to your colleagues?
Yes, we are good for now, Marcia. Thank
Okay.
you
Well,
so
thank you.
much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you, Madhu. Great. Okay. So if you would, I would like for you to unpin us, unpin me as well, so I can see people and answer your questions or share an insight or even challenge me, because again, I'm not a perfect coach. So I was hoping to demonstrate to you a conversation that still incorporated competencies. So, okay. So who's
We
got a
just asked the
question?
question, so
Yeah, just raise your hand. So, Navneeta, you've raised your
Uh,
hand? Mm,
it's Divya Shah. I see.
okay.
Raised her hand.
Okay, there's a couple people. That's okay. You can call it out. I'll let you do it.
Thank you so much, Marcia and Madhu, for the whole presence. And I literally felt in the session that, Marcia, you would know what to do with your experience when we get into that stage. So it was a beautiful experience. My question, I noticed you asked and repeated quite a lot of times. Can you say that again? And I'll ask again.
Yeah.
What is the thought
What is
behind
that?
that? Yeah.
So Madhu is a very cognitive person, and he's just getting into this. And so where I wanted to coach him where he's at. And so a lot of it was I just wanted him to really state it back to me that this is what it is, just to ensure that there's a commitment in his thinking. So, I realized I'm not going to get it doesn't matter. I didn't need to go in that much deeper here. I did share back with him just and didn't go there with, but I want you to look at that you're just holding on to the thought, I'll just be a coach until the end. Then I can tell him I can mentor him, you know? But then even when he said, maybe, I wanted to bring that up. Oh, now you've gone to maybe, not I will. I think that was a significant shift as well in where he is right now. So that's why I did. I wanted him to state it to me concisely back. So, the brain needs to hear any awareness or any commitment. The brain needs to hear you speak it. And so when he would just say yes to me, when his answer was just yes, that's it, I wanted him to say it back to me so his brain heard it. The brain won't embed it if it doesn't hear it, and he may not remember. So I don't always have to do that, because oftentimes when I confirm it, they will just say it back to me. But he didn't, he just said yes. And that's why I wanted to make sure he said it back to me so his brain heard it. And that again, that we went just to the level that I felt we could go in this time together. So even though it was still Madhu a root cause analysis, so and I do recognize that I worked with tech in semiconductor and computers with engineers all the time in thinking in a different way. I didn't have coaching, but I did have a lot of 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 how to connect with people and how to communicate. So,
Thank
yeah,
you. Thank you.
yeah.
The next person we can
Mhm.
take is Sai Sethuraman.
Okay.
Yeah, Masha, wonderful session. Enjoyed it thoroughly. Now, the question is, I feel like maybe mine is an odd one. And I find that as I work with folks, often I am talking to people that are not as strong in English.
Mm-hmm.
And when I ask a question,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't quite translate well.
Mm-hmm.
And then the discussion gets into more about what did I ask? What do I mean by that question? And it's sort of, I feel like during that conversation, suddenly the attention is turning to me rather than
Mm-hmm.
to be with the person that is trying to answer the question. So,
Okay.
there any
So
suggestions?
I coach in lots of different, I coach for 5 coaching schools in different countries, and they're not, a lot of times it's translated. If they don't seem to understand the question, or as you saw me ask Madhu, I asked him a question more than once. If he wasn't really answering my question, maybe it was he didn't understand it, or he was sidestepping it, but I really wanted the question answered. So honestly, Sai, just saying, let me ask that in another way. Okay, so it's not about you. And I want to even acknowledge that what you said up front, that be careful when you ask questions that that you say, I'm not sure if this is going to be clear or this may be an odd question. Don't do that. Okay, just ask the question. What's come up for you? But use reflection because I think when you're not speaking, if their primary language different than you, reflection is going to be even more important to make sure I understand what it is you mean. So even when I asked Madhu at the beginning, what does blend mean? I really didn't know. Did he want to blend a conversation or did he want to separate? I needed to clarify that. So be sure, Sai, that you have a clear agreement as to how they see the problem and why they think it's a challenge before you go any deeper. That agreement is going to help them clarify to you and for you to clarify for themselves, for yourself. You'll be able to ask more direct questions when you take time to do that. And even in the coaching, if you did not notice that even during the exploration, I still use reflection. It's like, okay, so you said that. And then I'll ask the question after, because remember, I'm helping my client think, which means I want them to see how they think out here because they can't do it themselves. My questions may help them, or may not. But if I use reflection and they hear themselves and they agree that's how I think, the question's going to land better. Okay, so work on that. All right?
Thank you much.
Okay. And
Uh,
you're,
can we take another question? Okay,
yeah,
I'll,
yeah, but I want to say that I've seen Navneetha's hand up from the very
yes,
beginning.
I was
Oh,
about to call
okay,
her.
good. Yeah, I see you.
Thank you, Dr. Marcia, for bringing me up to light, and thank you, Meetu, for the opportunity. So it was wonderful watching your demo, Marcia. What the I saw in the demo that you were trying to address the root cause, like you were going back to the in that moment,
Mhm,
um,
mhm.
like what I mean. I forgot the actual question you asked, but then you
Yeah,
you were trying to point out like where
yeah,
is this thought to you know
yeah,
to switch between that mentor and coach is coming from. I think you were
yeah,
trying to figure out that root cause and going
yeah.
right, but I
And
think
it was difficult
yeah,
because his habit is to go to doing. And I'm like,
y-
no, 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 we're not going to doing yet. You know. But let me share that, with the new coaching competencies where it says you can share some information, as long as you're not trying to lead them into what you want them to say. So recognizing he's a tech guy, I knew that, okay, let's talk about what it is I'm trying to get to here. So I said, okay, you know about root cause analysis, because he kept going to what to do, what to do, what to do. I said, I really want to, instead of just quickly solving this, I really want to look a little bit deeper. Is that okay? So I brought it into his frame of reference, um, and he understood it right away, right, Madhu? It's like, oh, okay, I know that, and so that allowed me to if you again, thank you for noticing. I kept trying to, like, okay, I understand what you're going to do, but what caused it in the first place? Because if you just go to fix it, it's still going to come back, and so so that was the kind of the dance that we were doing, at that moment,
yeah.
so yeah, yeah. And
So
there's more to if I was coaching Madhu, as he goes to apply this and sees, and if it works every time, great. And if it doesn't, we would look at, what came up. But I think even the steps he took here were really great. So yeah.
yeah, so my question is like, what to do like when I coach my clients and
Mhm.
they don't want to go to see what is there
Mhm.
really the root cause or something.
Yeah.
Uh, because what should I do? Because we focus on the person, as you say, coach the person, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when they don't want to go beyond a certain level, or when they
Yeah.
don't want to go beyond what
Yeah. And what to
touch
do?
that person level,
Okay.
what can we do, and where is the limit? Like where should we
Okay. You're
where
now
should
stacking your questions.
sorry.
That's okay. You know, so again, I want you to notice, that it is our habit to ask a question, ask it again, and ask it again, and that what's a coaching skill is just ask the question, so understand when you get someone new to coaching that they may not be willing, but like I said with Madhu, I'm just going to go as far as I think we can go here. Okay? And you can always say, yeah, I hear, I just really want to understand, what's getting in the way of you doing what it is, that yeah, it's why I asked Madhu, did you know this before we met? I don't always ask that question. I often don't. But I really needed to determine, did you know this? And you're just not doing it, or did you not know it? That was a true curiosity. And so to me, it was critical when he said, yeah, I did, but I don't always do it. And that's when I shifted the agreement. So is that what you want to work on? That you really want to work on those times when you don't do it? We shifted right there. And that's when he said, sometimes I get too busy. To me, that was a critical moment, you know? And so, I just stayed with him to really try to understand it. N and I want to pronounce it as well, right, Navneetha.
Yeah.
Just stick with it, go where you can go, but it's all about trust and safety. If you drop out of that because you're frustrated, they're not going to go there with you. So just keep caring about them and stay with it. And say, you know what, I know, you've been doing this for a while. I really trust that you've thought about this. What have you tried that hasn't worked? Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you so
Yeah,
much.
you're so welcome.
Thank you, Navneeta. Before I take the name of the next person, I would like to say the feedback form has been posted by Krishna. So whoever wants the CCUs, please fill in the form.
Mm-hmm.
Marcia, I was just, as you were coaching, I was relating to your book, which the very first chapter says, asking questions is not inquiry, and it talks about reflective inquiry. And I
Yeah.
saw that so much. And along with questions,
Mhm.
you said paraphrasing and reflecting, which I saw
Yeah.
so much in the coaching. You were repeating what Madhu said back to him,
Yeah.
and he was coming
Thank
back.
you. And
Yeah,
I've
so
done that even more in my development as a coach because I wasn't necessarily taught that. I was taught asking questions. But it's why ICF took away the competency of ask powerful questions because there was too much focus on the question. So now it's evoke awareness. So remembering, I'm trying to evoke awareness. And reflection is always been in the competencies. Did the coach reflect, summarize, paraphrase has always been there. But the focus on the powerful question moved the focus away from that. So I didn't make it up, you know. But I then went to and coach the person, and it's still a big part of the second edition of what is it we're summarizing? What is it you're listening for that you want to feed back to them? And that's you're not parroting what they're saying. They're giving you things. So if you notice the words I asked him about, what do you mean by that? And shared back with him, it's because I've been working on what is it that he just said that he needs to hear? What is the belief that I just heard him say, or the fear, and the stop, but I have always been okay, that, and he's got a little bit of shoulds, I still need to be, he's got a little bit of I still need to be the one who knows, so that not fully trusting coaching fully yet, that will come, Madhu, when he starts to see the value. I know it will come for him. So please, if you don't know how to do that, and again, if you go on my website, again, there's a lot of resources. Just look under, the books, and there's links to resources. That one I gave you, though, the maybe you can also share that. Somebody in the chat. That one is not. That's like a secret page for now. I haven't fully publicized that. So that's your secret resource page. Yeah. So and if you don't have that to share with them, I'll give it to you afterwards. But it's
sure.
yeah. It's for showing up here. You get a secret resource page.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I saw Tom raise his hand earlier, and now it's down. So, Tom, would you like to go ahead and ask?
Oh, sure, yeah. I put a little comment too. That was really nice, Marcia.
Thank you.
So curious and spontaneous, and I love
Mm.
what you said as well about like, we need to we need to set up that reflection. I was drilled by my mentor for acknowledgement and then our reflection, and then if we have an inquiry after that, or if the reflection
Mhm.
itself is enough
Yeah.
for and usually it is, right?
Yeah.
If it's a good
Right.
reflection,
Clean.
that Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clean and concise. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love too. It's like, you kept coming back to uh, you know, um going away from the what, which
Mhm.
Madhu kind of seems to want to move to the who. And who are you? You kept trying to pull him back into his
Well,
intent and purpose, which is great. I mean, I love
and didn't you
it.
see, Tom, that that was really the issue?
Yeah.
That's really it. Can he make the shift
hmm
from being the mentor, being the one who knows, to being the coach? That's really the shift that he
Right.
has to make. So we danced around that a little bit just so he can start to do that.
Right.
Yeah,
With the
until
time
he makes that
constraint.
shift,
Yeah.
he's gonna fall back. So
And I'm sure
um
if you had more time to,
yeah,
dig deeper, that would have come up. So, but it was very
yeah,
nice. Yeah. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
yeah. Great,
Great.
Thank you, Tom.
great.
Marcia, keeping the interest of time in mind, just before we
Hmm.
take the next question from Lavanya, can we invite Madhu to tell how he felt? Just like
Sure.
if he could get a chance, Madhu. Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Mitu. Thanks so much, Marcia. I think now, I definitely know how to construct my sessions going forward. I know how to,
Hmm.
have a coordinated approach going forward and make
Great.
it repeatable. So that's something
Yeah,
that I learned from this session. Thank you so much.
yeah. Well, and thank you for agreeing to record it, because now you can listen back to your session as well to see what really occurred. And again, if
Good.
you were to break this down, you will know that I was hitting the competencies
Mhm.
without thinking. So I
Thank
really
you.
wanted to know what he really wanted to do, but what was really the challenge, um, and what to focus on, what's getting in the way, and then what will he do next? That was it. Okay. We have time for another question?
Okay. If we have time, then Lavanya has raised her hand for a very long time
Mhm.
now. So
Sure.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Marsha. That was great.
Mhm.
I personally have a difficulty of
Mhm.
making the questions really simple. I mean, the way you were asking, of course, you have so many years of experience, but if you could give some
Yeah,
hints as to what I can do to
yeah.
make my question really simple.
Yeah. First off, just ask it once. And if they don't understand, then you can ask it differently. And let me rephrase that. Um, but but fortunately, I've been a very direct. If any of you do DISC, I'm a D. I'm direct, concise by nature, so I'm grateful for that. But trust yourself. Trust that they understand what you're saying, that you don't have to explain yourself. And the more you repeat it and explain it, the more you will lose them. Okay. So I'm just going to ask this question. I'm just going to throw it out. And if they don't get it, I can ask it a different way. Trust yourself. All right. And just practice in all your conversations, not just coaching, when you're with people, be curious about what they're saying. Ask a question, instead of telling them what you think. So, yeah. I have a
Sure.
dear friend that, I always tell him, every time I tell you something, you always turn it and flip it onto what you think and your experience, and he's like, oh, I do that, I do that. And then he'll do it again, you know. But at least he hears it from me. I mean, we've been friends for 50 years. I probably won't change him, but oh, coach with a high D, interesting. Well, I have an high I too. I really like people as well as that I'm very direct. But it allows me also to coach, top leaders who want me to be concise and direct, that they won't even listen to me if I'm not. So develop that skill. So one
Thank
more
you.
question, I think. Yeah.
Yes, we can thank you, Marcia, for giving that time. And next question can be from Ramesh.
Yeah, thank you. So, Marcia, this is not a question so much as an observation for your comment.
Mhm.
So I felt that during this whole thing, the root of the anxiety, if I may call it that Madhu
The what? I'm
had,
sorry.
the root of the, the root cause
Okay.
of the difficulty that Madhu was going through probably was this need to perform and be useful to the
To be
coachee,
useful. Yeah.
and the coachee should leave with a solution.
Yeah.
And I'm speeding things up through mentorship so that the coachee finds a solution and goes away, rather than let the coachee find his own solution, which probably may take time, and the coachee may not find the solution which the coach wants.
Okay.
This is the comment, your observation.
Yeah. Because he did not use those words, I would not use them. All right. If we had gone deeper into, that moment of, I want to tell him I'm a mentor, it's like, okay, we could go deeper into, so you've been someone who gives people advice and you're very experienced, so when you have that need to tell them, what is that need? So you can ask them that question, but I would never say, so it sounds like you need to feel needed. Okay, I really want them to come up with it, because they may say yes, they may say no, and so I'm never imposing my interpretation, not never, of course I do, I make that mistake like everyone, but I'm trying not to impose my interpretation. I want the discovery is what changes the brain. If you give it to them, it's a cognitive process. They may remember, they may not. It's short-term memory. I want them to change long-term memory. So I really do try to stay with the discovery process. That's all. Okay? All right.
Thank you.
So I need
Thank
to
you.
go because the person I need to see just pulled up. So with that, I'm going to leave you all. And thank you for inviting me. And thank you all for being a coach, for choosing to be a coach. We so need you. Thank you. Oh, look, and there's my book in Bangkok. Yay, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Somebody sent me a picture yesterday. They saw it in an airport, at the bookstore in the airport. I'm so excited that I'm helping to spread coaching around the world. And thank you for doing that as well, because we are making a difference and this world needs us right now. So thank you. Yeah.
Marcia,
Thank
thank you.
you
Would
so
just
much,
be mere
Marcia.
words from our end, but yeah, thanks a lot for what you made us
Okay.
experience. And yes.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Mm-mm.